All right, welcome back. I think we're live.
Think we are, John.
David, good to see you again. We prepped for just a couple minutes, and I think we chose a topic that we'll have to sort of figure out the exact topic in question is. But the basic idea is, are are conversations more about meaning making, or are conversations more about relationship building? And I think we know they're both,
Yeah.
but there does seem to be some assumptions out in the world about
Mm.
without really checking those assumptions. Why are we even talking? What is the point of this conversation? And I think where I'll start us off a little bit, but yeah, I would love to get your whole take on this. Is I think the vast majority of conversations, the assumption is we're here to talk to each other to to make each other smarter, or or dare I'm gonna be a bit spicy and say something like, you just don't understand me. So let me help you understand me. And the point of the conversation is to educate someone else.
I'm
And I
right. You're wrong.
yes, yes. And if you just were smarter,
You
then
would
then
understand.
you would understand and you would change, right? Like, and I think that's a big, big part of I don't know, a huge percentage of
The number of times I heard
conversations.
people say to me, "You just don't understand, David," which is a perfect way to kill a conversation. You're essentially
Yeah.
saying, you just don't get this. You're never going to get this
End of
conversation.
conversation.
End of conversation. Now it's interesting as you were saying that, because I haven't pre-thought this at all.
Mhm.
Was one of my favorite quotations from Peter Block came to
Okay.
mind. Connection before content. We
Mhm.
need to build relationships before we get down to work.
Mhm.
So here, if we're talking about relationship versus sense making, meaning making, decision making, hey, it's the relationship that comes first. So um, you might say relationship is more important. Maybe not, maybe they're equally important, but it certainly comes first. So first and foremost, conversation should be, to my mind, I might change my mind on this because I'm just going with my immediate thoughts, should be about establishing a strong relationship.
It's
Then
such an
everything
interest.
follows from that.
Yeah, and I just think I guess I'll use this wording of going deeper. And what I mean is like I think sure at some kind of superficial level there's a make each other smarter, share new ideas, maybe at best create a new idea between the two of us. I didn't think of it, you didn't think of it, but it kind of got created between us, sure. But I wonder, and maybe this is like deeper psychology or something. I wonder if it's about um, I want to exist, I want to be seen, I want to matter, that kind of thing. And you know what I mean? Like deeper underneath the point of having any conversation is that kind of like I exist. What's the Ubuntu quote? I exist because we exist. Something I am because we are.
Forgotten that now, yes.
Something like that. There's one of those other quotes that I can never remember, sadly, which is something like don't care about me until you prove to me that you care about me. I'm totally messing that up, but it's
Okay.
something about
Don't know that one either.
yeah, that one I didn't make any sense with that one, but it's something about show me that you care
Hmm.
before other stuff. Um,
Yes, yes, okay. I get that as well. Yes, that's fine. And again, so again, show me that you're listening. Show me that you're genuinely curious.
and I think my whole point here is that I think conversations get off on the wrong foot or take the wrong path
Oh, I think so
immediately
too.
from the very beginning when it's with this assumption of
Well,
uh,
so often what people are doing is trying to convince the other person of their point of view
mm,
rather than seeing it as a learning conversation and being open to other person's perspective. And of course, there's a good old Stephen Covey quote: "Seek first to understand, then to be understood."
mm,
Um, that's what we usually fail to do.
mm,
Um, but I mean, what you Originally, we started out with the question which was more important, or was whether it's relationship or meaning
Meaning
making
making.
come sense making.
Mm.
And you were really just pointing out there that there are a lot of other things. I mean, there's a lot. There's always so much going on in a conversation, and of course, it very much depends on the context, what you're looking to achieve. But the very first thing is, I think, has got to be the relationship building and the trust building, because until you've got that, you can't have a really any sort of real conversation.
Would um, if the assumption for all of us, just to play, was more about building relationships as opposed to uh, intellectual stimulation,
Mm-hmm.
would the words be different? Would the conversations go differently? I'm trying to think of, is there a culture in the world that tends to be conversational around how are we each doing? How are you doing? How am I doing? Like, what's going on for you? I don't know, that type of relationship building conversation first, versus are there other parts
That's
of the world that are more get stuff done?
that's a really interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I've not come across anything. I don't think that any research. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that.
We can look it up.
So
Let's see.
that's worth looking into. Um, Maybe some of the indigenous cultures.
That's,
Maybe
I'm guessing the same. Yeah.
I don't know, but that comes first, and then I know people define meaning making and sense making slightly differently, but the way I've always seen it is that sense making is about gaining a better understanding of what's going on in the world. So we've got AI. In a good example right now is AI. A lot of change, a lot of stuff going on. So for me, sense making is making sense of AI and its impact, on the world in general. Yes, and the meaning making is asking the simple question: okay, I've now understood it a little bit better. What does it mean for me personally, or what does it mean for my organization, or what does it mean for my community or my society? Um, what are the implications? How does it affect me? How do I need? How do I personally or my organization need to personally respond to it? So I make that difference between those two. But I think often they get muddled and,
Mhm.
and combined. And of course, again, coming back to say, you know how much I like Dave Snowden's Cynefin model.
Mhm.
So in the simple domain, it's very easy to make sense of things. The tap's not working. Change the washer. Complicated domain. Hey, we might need to bring in a few experts here to make sense of why the car won't start.
Mhm.
Um, so you've got in that simple domain, you it's a very simple conversation you might have with your wife about fixing the washer. There's nothing complex about that or difficult about that conversation. In the complicated domain, you maybe got some experts talking about it again to make sense of what's going on, what's the problem, in order that we can fix it. And then, of course, in the complex domain, um, it's not about experts; it's about bringing together um, a lot of different perspectives, people with different backgrounds, different ideas, different insights, people from different cultures, and and really creating dialogic spaces where you can really um, engage in dialogue and investigate what's going on. And
We've got sense making, meaning making. I've never heard the phrase relationship making.
no,
And I wonder, like, what would that look like? Like, would that be the same thing? Would conversations look the same? Or would there be something different that's because like I agree with you when you
I
say
think
like
that they would be different. They would be
it
different.
and like you're saying like relationship making comes first or like building the relationship or bond or trust first. I sure. And it's like for me it's like I don't want to move on from that. I don't want to say, job done, we built trust, and now let's get to the important, let's now get smarter. I want to stay
Yeah,
with the
you can't
relationship.
separate the two. You should always be
Yeah.
looking to reinforce the relationship.
Yeah.
It's I hate it when people say, that someone's maybe very blunt about something with somebody. It usually happens in families, and they say, "Well, he needs to be told." Well, no. I saw a big sign once, a big billboard somewhere with a little scruffy boy, tears welling down his face, and it said underneath, he doesn't need a good talking to, he needs a good listening to.
Mm,
Something like that. I wish I
mhm.
photographed it. Um, but I think at times when I talk to some people in some contexts where what they're telling me, I know, I know is absolutely wrong. I know okay, I could be biased here, but I know for absolute certain that they're wrong. But I also know they feel very strongly about it. So I could come out and sort of tell them they're smoking pot or whatever. They're full of it. I could come out and do that, but most of the time I don't. And there's part of me that says, really I should. I shouldn't let them carry on with this misunderstanding, this misapprehension.
Mm.
But the question I think in your mind is going to be all the time: is this going to seriously harm the relationship so that I've got less influence in the future? And somehow you need to again have that open conversation without being dominant, without being overly persuasive, to somehow have that conversation so that they get to see, maybe not that they're wrong, but there's a different way of seeing it, or maybe just maybe you get to realize that you were wrong all along. which is wonderful when that happens.
Yeah. If you're open to the, I'm wrong, or I can
You
rethink
always need to
this.
be open to being wrong, whatever it is.
But even like, even the right wrong, I think for me is still like sense making, meaning making stuff. I'm wondering, like, and tell me if this is too much, but like, do you in all the conversations that like popped to mind for you, what have you ever noticed a pattern, a way that if somebody does this, you trust them more, or I'm thinking of people that you meet for the first time. You just got back from a conference, right? Like, have you noticed something where if someone does this or says this, you start with a strong relationship? Is there a relational
If
move?
somehow I determine, I see very early on that they're very open, and also if they've got a sense of humor.
Okay.
If people come full on at me about something,
The first time. If they did it later, maybe it's
the
okay.
first
But
time, it's there's a difference between when you first meet somebody having a proper conversation where it's completely open, completely freewheeling, and where the other person, you feel the other person has got an agenda.
mm,
I just had a lovely experience at the Knowledge Summit in Dubai. There's hardly anybody there that I knew, and on the first day, I go to lunch. I'm standing in the queue. There's a woman in front of you, and she turns around to me. She says, "Oh my gosh!" She says, "David Gertin." She says, "How wonderful to meet you." And I didn't know her from Adam.
mhm.
I said, "How do you know me?" She says, "You're David Gertin. You're famous for your knowledge cafes." I said, "How do you know all of that?" She said, "I'm a good friend of Ron Young,
Oh,
and
okay.
Ron's a good colleague of mine. And I know about you and your work for Ron, and I've actually run cafes and blah, blah, blah." And we kept bumping into each other um, through the event. And we just had some amazing conversations because she was just very open and very humorous, and just immediately warmed to her. And then the other people you meet, where they're I don't know what it is, that they're distant, they're cold, um, they feel they're putting on a show. or they
Mm.
feel that they've got an agenda. But it's just wonderful when you meet people where there's just this. Okay, in this case, maybe I was flattered, but so
I I had this. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say one of my favorite books that a lot of people dismiss is How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie,
Hmm.
and he really talks about a whole load of different ways of building relationships with people.
Yeah, I was going to say, which I think is still related. Um, there was one of those TV shows here in the States. I didn't watch it, but I heard a lot of people talk about it. And it was one of those like Bachelor or Bachelorette or like you get married at the end kind of shows. And they were down to the final two people. And I really don't remember if it was like two men at the end or two women at the end. I think it was two women at the end. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is some people would say, I heard people talking about the show and I heard people like say the names of the two final people. This was years ago and it still stuck with me. And the word people would use is real. Well, this woman is really real, so he should choose her. She's so real.
Okay,
And then I would listen to other
real.
circles and groups of people,
Yeah.
and they would call, and it took me a while to realize this, they were calling the other woman more real. And so then I like, had to look it up and actually like kind of join in these conversations that I knew nothing about and saying like, well, who is this person and what makes her real? And some of them were like, the one woman would speak like very bluntly, no sugarcoating, no smiling, just straight at you with her
Yeah.
words. And this is what she sees, and like, just take it or leave it, that kind of thing. And people considered that very real. And then
Oh, okay. Right. They
the
thought
other
that was
woman,
real.
right? And the other woman was sort of the polar opposite, smiling, happy, funny, like jokes, right? That's I don't know. I think I'm exaggerating a bit because I didn't watch it, but this is what I'm recalling from
And
it.
she wasn't
And
seen as real.
she, no, other people thought she was real.
Okay, so yeah, different
And
opinions.
so different opinions. So like to the point of like I can think back to Kinevin and complexity. Isn't that a like how do you even know how to build relationship if some people are looking for one way of being and other people looking for another way of being?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I, I don't even know how you can ask that question. Do you say to someone, do I feel real to you right now? Are you picking up any red flags on the way I'm speaking to you? Like, how do you? I'm just being me, and this is like the best person I know how to be, and I think it goes well, but apparently there's a million different ways to be, and this conversation may or may not go well, and I
A
didn't know it.
million different ways to be real.
Yeah, yeah.
The more we talk about this, John, the more we realize the complexity of human nature,
Mm.
the complexity of conversation.
Mm.
I'm surprised we don't. I'm surprised we didn't, kill each other off many millennia ago.
Mhm, mhm.
They always say if it wasn't for sex, men and women would kill each other.
Well, yeah.
Um, Humor's a part of it. Humor's a big part of it. They always say tell you can tell a lot about a person and tell a lot about their values by what they laugh at.
Mm. Yeah. I remember doing some leadership development where they said the same thing. It was like um, someone makes an inappropriate joke on stage, and you've got like these different groups that appear. You've got the ones that laugh hard at it. You've got the ones that are like they have to laugh because socially everyone is laughing, and then it's usually a smaller group of people that don't laugh because it's inappropriate or harmful or hurtful or whatever. And so now even we know humor can be pretty divisive. Um,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, it can put you in a play. It can, I don't know. Yeah, to your point, it can show what that person is sort of about, or how much space they put between, how much intentionality they put into their choices and their laughter and their jokes and their responses.
Mm. Well, we've talked about somebody in the past who will go nameless, who, and I've seen them do this several times. They'll join a group in a conversation, maybe a group that I'm already in, and they will tend to dominate the conversation, which, okay, it's not so bad. But what they're clearly doing is they're fishing,
Mm,
fishing for information, fishing for insights.
mm,
They're trying to find out whether the other people in the group are of value to them or not.
mm, mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
um,
And I
and that's a big turn off. So I mean, the person I'm thinking of is very successful. Um,
and very highly
in many ways, a very lovely person,
and very highly thought of.
and very highly thought of. But
Mhm,
that behaviour just irks me.
mhm. So that's, I think, in the conversational leadership space or perspective, I think maybe one of the best things we can do is just kind of put words to these patterns we see and say that, okay,
Yeah,
somebody's fishing, somebody's out there seeing if you're worth their time. Um, and for some people that works well, and for others it doesn't. And let's just like notice that. It's just, there's no one way, but here's something, here's a pattern we're seeing.
mm,
I have a feeling we would find and this whole point of this stream here was like, what are the patterns we see on meaning making conversation? How much time do we spend in meaning making conversations? How much time do we spend in sense making conversations? And how much time do we spend in relation making conversations? Versus
in
what are the
fact,
25 others?
yeah. For me, both of those conversations are quite rare. I know
Mm,
conversations are a lot more transactional,
mm,
and not very deep.
mhm.
Um, but the patterns, I think we've had this conversation before, either online or offline, where we've talked about patterns, because I know I've gone away and thought to be really quite little interesting exercise to identify some of those conversational patterns, both the good ones and the bad ones. Um, wouldn't be so difficult to do. It'd be quite an interesting little exercise.
And honestly, there, you and I, more we've looked at this and read other people's work and read books on it. A lot of people have noticed some pattern. You talked about Dale Carnegie, right? Like
Yeah,
he noticed patterns that were effective in his circles for influencing people. Great. So there's some influencing patterns. We know Dr. Kate Pugh does all of her work on conversational
yes, that's
moves.
right. Yeah,
Great list of 4 patterns. I think what I'm loving about conversational leadership is, wouldn't it be nice to like do what I just like? Here's a model here. Here's some patterns here. Here's some other patterns. Here's some other patterns. We're not trying to stick to one set of patterns. We're trying to look at the aggregate, the patterns of patterns.
here's the story.
Yeah.
I meet somebody, I don't know, maybe twice a week. I go for coffee, little place called Hart New Whitney, which you know.
I know it well.
And there's a guy there who I got to know some years ago. And if we're there having coffee, we have coffee together and we have a conversation. And on occasions, sometimes a conversation just, it's just a conversation. It just goes. Other times I think about the conversation I want to have with him before I get there. I've done that on occasions. I think here's a opportunity to have a little bit of an experiment, if you like. And what I've done once or twice, and this seems a little teeny bit controlling, but what the hell? I I pick in my mind a topic that I know he's interested in, and then I bring it up as a question or I introduce it into the conversation, and then I just let him talk and I just listen to him. And I can remember doing this not so long back, and he seemed to be in a rather glum mood that morning. He wasn't very, he was rather quiet. And I thought, okay, here goes. So I brought up this topic, and of course he lit up. He lit up, and he talked and he talked and he talked and he talked about his childhood and all sorts of stuff. And he it completely changed him. And I was determined not to bring the conversation back to me. I could have picked up on things and sort of said, well, my childhood, blah blah blah. I just let him talk and just encouraged him to talk. And he might have said it was a great conversation. In many ways, it was me letting him talk about the stuff that he enjoyed talking about. Of course, I guess if you want to build a relationship, at times maybe that's the sort of thing that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it seems a little bit controlling, but I actually really enjoyed it, just listening and just letting him uh, go where he wanted to go in his head.
Controlling's an interesting one because, like, is it? Can we go there for 2 seconds? Like, controlling, I mean, sure, maybe you influenced, you chose the topic,
Yeah, I'm
but
not
like you
totally
didn't,
controlling.
yeah, yeah, but I appreciate that you even bring it up. Like, or maybe you, like, to me, like, I guess extreme controlling would be to like tell him what to say and tell him what to do and like correcting and, but if you're
Here's a
listening,
topic we never talked about, and maybe we can do this separately,
mm,
and that's the ethics of
mm,
conversation.
yeah, sure, sure.
Um,
Which is
what,
hilarious because like both, OD, organization development and knowledge management, two of the fields I do a lot in, OD for sure talks about its ethics. KM not as much, and I've actually heard a little bit of pop up recently on what are the ethics of KM. So maybe we need to do an ethics of conversational leadership. What does
yes.
control look like?
What is ethical in a conversation
Mm-hmm,
or not ethical?
mm-hmm.
When is lying in a conversation okay, or not even lying, just maybe being what's the word? Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Tight on the truth.
There you go. Yeah.
Just not saying things that you know are going to upset the apple cart, as they say.
Mm-hmm. It
Shall we
is
stop
fascinating.
there? I think we've
Sure.
done good.
I think so too. Maybe the last thing I'll say as we stop is, isn't it to bring AI back in? Isn't it fascinating to watch like how AI is now, like when they put like Siri next to Alexa and have them start a conversation with each other, that kind of, and like, and as AI and like now humanoid robots and just watching like literally how different that can be to help us
It's we.
recheck what the human aspect of this whole thing is.
It's causing us to rethink what it means to be human. I
Mm-hmm,
think what's really interesting, it's causing us to rethink the purpose of education and how we educate people,
mm-hmm,
which is long overdue.
mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that might be worth a future conversation. And that's the impact of AI on education.
Education.
Because
All
I think
right.
I've told you I've been following this work of Professor Rupert Begovic at Cambridge,
Mm-hmm,
who's looking at what he calls dialogic education, dialogic thinking, dialogic learning.
mm-hmm. Which is exactly what I try to do in the couple of places that I do some facilitation. So,
Yeah.
all right, I like it. Maybe next time.
Okay. Good.